Today's guest is one of the Minot Dallas fans who is surviving the Cowboys season. Joining me now, it's Nick Dreyer. He's been all over Minot State, KMOT. He was a former Joe Skrzyszewski news director at KMOT, and now he's into the Cowboys and selling crop insurance among a bunch of other specialty cocktails. Nick, let's start where it all began. What was it like growing up in Willow City?
Oh, man, Willow City. Well, it's a town of 250, 300 people when I was there. I think it's a much less right now. It was, when I look back, I had an awesome upbringing. I mean, it was a great place to raise a family and grow up as a kid. And I grew up on a farm about 7 miles out of town. Great friends. We were all, when I think back to my class, we were all just kind of good kids, and we didn't get in a lot of trouble, too much trouble. But no, it was a great place. Farming community, hardworking people. Everybody knew each other. When someone was needed help, we all helped each other out, and that's what farming communities and rural North Dakota is all about.
I've seen a lot of good real estate deals coming out of Willow City. Whenever I take my car into Lightning Loop, there's always that post where it's like a house for less than $100,000, but I couldn't do the commute, I don't think.
You should check it out. You'd save all that money and then have all the gas money to drive. But
yeah, maybe later.
It's definitely like I said, it's shrunk since I've been there. When the school closed in 2002, that really hurt, obviously. So there's a couple restaurants, there's a couple bars, a couple churches. There's the Farmers Union still in town that does a lot of egg business, so that keeps the town pumping. But yeah, I don't get back there a lot because I quit farming a while ago, and my dad quit farming too, so I don't get back there a ton. So it's definitely shrunk since I've been gone.
That sounds like it's got like the Class B starter pack still. Restaurants, bars, churches, and a farmers union.
I am your classic Class B kid. Absolutely. Yeah.
What about the Gunslinger Grill? That was in the news not too long ago. You ever pick out that place?
I have been there, yes. They actually have really good food there and really cold beer. So check it out.
Yeah, that makes sense here. So you get up to Minot State from the old city, and then you get to KMOT. Tell me a little bit about the process of deciding that for yourself as you started your career.
All right, so when I was a senior in school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And my English teacher, Mrs. Gregg, had a class project one day and said we were all going to put on a newscast. And lo and behold, Nick Dreyer was picked to be the news anchor. And I just loved it. I loved what I was doing. I thought, hey, I don't mind getting up in front of people. I can do this. I've always had an interest in news and knowing what's going on and keeping up with politics and stuff like that. So, I went into it. I met the professor at Minot State, Neil Roberts, still one of my good friends. And he showed me around and sounded like a great place, so I tried it, I liked it, and it turned out to be a good decision for me.
Awesome, man. That was I recorded with Neil just about an hour ago, so it's a pretty powerful block here of stories that we got going here on the podcast. So what kind of a golden age was it back when it was KMOT's Nick Dreyer versus KX's Sean Sitma?
Oh, big battles. Big ratings battles. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, KX, when I came into KMOT, things were really changing at that point. We had just been bought out by a big company. The Meyer family had owned the NBC affiliate there for many years, and a lot of the longtime employees were leaving, so I kind of walked into a situation where I'm like, wow, what did I get myself into? But I was young and didn't really know anything, and I was a part-time photographer for sports. I just kind of worked my way up and really liked reporting on news, in politics, like I said, and did a lot of local government stories. I like that. And I just kind of continued to work myself up. I got the 10 o'clock anchor job. Then I went to morning reporter, 6 o'clock anchor. I think I was doing 6 and 10. I did a lot of different things. I don't even remember. But, eventually just worked myself up to news director, running a department of about, 6 or 7 people.
Both Minot stations have gone from family ownership to bigger company ownership. The company that you brought up with KMOT, now it's Gray TV that owns us, and then the rights to Nexstar with KX. From your perspective, I know you kind of fill in still sometimes. I remember you did the weather a couple times still recently at KMOT when we needed a body, you know. From your perspective, what's been kind of like maybe the good and bad about being owned one way versus the other?
Yeah, it's definitely two different things. I think there's only a few family-owned TV stations left in America. And there might be none. I don't know. I haven't checked recently, but having that family-owned business, people know the family. It's just a much closer knit thing. And then when you get bought out by a bigger place, changes happen. Maybe some people that had close contacts with the family no longer had those close contacts anymore, and you're dealing with different people that are looking at the bottom line more and looking at you as something to be bought and sold, and they want to turn a profit. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with profits. I get that. That's the world we live in. But it's just a different dynamic. And then the employees are caught kind of in the middle sometimes. I've been in good situations where the people have owned KMOT, and I've been in bad ownership positions where I felt like I wasn't really cared about. But, you take the good with the bad. You just do your job and try to do the best you can.
All right, so when you look at your whole body of work that you did in TV news here in Minot, what do you really remember the most about it?
Well, this is interesting because when I got into news, I started in August of 2000. I was still going to school and got a part-time job at KMOT. I worked myself up pretty quickly because, like I said, we had a lot of people leaving at that point, so I was able to get a 10 o'clock anchor job pretty quickly. About a month after my 10 o'clock anchor job, September 11th happened, and I was on the 10 o'clock news, and that was a very hard thing to go through as a young journalist and just as a nation. I still remember that newscast very well. My eyes were red because, first of all, I was so tired because I had gotten up. I remember my buddy called me, and he said, "You better turn on your TV," and I did because I was working the late shift at KMOT, so I was sleeping in a little bit. And it was, I couldn't believe what I saw. I saw it from my little 13-inch color television. And I got a call from my news director at that time, and he said, "You better get in here." I went in here. We started doing interviews they're called Man on the Street. So you just walk up to total strangers and ask them for an interview. And usually when we did that, we'd go to the post office because everybody goes to the post office so we can find bodies pretty quickly to talk to. I remember being in the post office, and a airman walked in with his gear on, so I knew he was an airman from Minot Air Force Base, and he mouthed the words to me, 911. I remember that, and it just really sticks with me because I knew what our military was probably about to do, and they were going to strike back. And of course, Minot Air Force Base with their B-52s had a big influence on the war that would come out of 9/11. Bombing the Middle East. So that was early on in my career. And then January of 2002 was another big story in Minot where we had the train derailment. We had one person that died. Of course, hundreds were affected, had health conditions from the anhydrous ammonia that was spilled. It was the largest spill of anhydrous ammonia in the nation. Reporting on that was difficult as well. And those stories ran for many weeks after that and years after that, just the after effects of that. And then as I was ending my career, the flood, of course, the great flood of Minot happened in 2011. And, looking back on that, I remember we'd start airing about 7 a.m. and we'd go till 11, 12 at night when it was heavy during the flood. I remember one day when we knew that the levees would break, I think I was on the desk for 16 hours straight, and I didn't even take a bathroom break. I don't even know how that's possible. Mm-hmm. But it was so heart-wrenching, and so many things were coming at me that I couldn't leave the desk. So things like that really stick out in your memory. So when you look at my career with 9/11, I ended it around the time of our flood. Some big things happen. Obviously the community of Minot has recovered partially from that, but we still continue to fight the flood and not really fight the flood, but just prepare for another flood if we have one.
You moved away from TV news as a career at that point, you said, but still, it seems that you're pretty passionate when it comes to politics and, what kind of goes on in our country that way. Why do you still care so much outwardly about it?
This started at a young age for me, Ben. I remember as a farm kid growing up, I'd be in the tractor, and all I really had was AM radio. So I would be kind of forced to listen to news and Rush Limbaugh, people like that. My dad instilled in me really a faith in God and politics, because I remember him telling me one day, you need to realize what is going on in the world and people got to pay attention. And that just stuck with me for some reason, and I got interested in politics, and I'm really interested in what makes people tick and why they think the way they do. And it's really interesting to me why one person I know thinks this way and another person I know thinks another way. So I have my own beliefs. My friends on Facebook probably know that. I've been following this election pretty closely, and I actually get a lot of people who come up to me and say, hey, I follow you on Facebook, and I really appreciate what you post on there. And it's been quite interesting to me, because it's just kind of a hobby of mine, but people need to be informed and pay attention.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would expect that answer from somebody that is like, yeah, I kind of follow it, whatever, but you were like hammering the election on Facebook.
Yeah, especially this election has been very interesting to me because of who was in the White House with Donald Trump, and I have always been someone that didn't really like your typical politician, because the way this country was being steered, I think a lot of people are being fooled by these politicians that make the perfect speeches, wear the perfect suit, but don't really do anything. They say one thing but don't really do anything. Here we had a guy that really didn't say the right things, didn't come from a political background. He was a business person from Manhattan, yet he appealed to people like from Willow City. And it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but it was very interesting to follow. I kind of lived and breathed the last 4 years through Donald Trump, and it's been very interesting to me to follow what he's done. And I was really interested with the dynamic of this election, because you saw the passion for people who really like Donald Trump, but yet you saw people who really the disdain for Donald Trump, and it was such a dynamic of the two. I was really interested in how that would play out, because Biden wasn't really even a factor. He was kind of in the background. It was more, I'm voting against Donald Trump or I'm voting for Donald Trump. Biden was an afterthought.
This air date is November 13th, so hopefully they get the ballots all counted up by then, for God's sake.
But, I doubt it.
In another one of your roles here, are you the kind of guy that like makes the speech and just wears the suit as fantasy football commissioner, or how do you deal with those politics?
Being a fantasy football commissioner has been the toughest role of my life, and I have 4 young kids at home.
Oh my!
I'm just kidding. I got thrust into being a fantasy football commissioner because the commissioner that I did have left, and he left town and didn't want to do it anymore. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll do it. But it is. I mean, I got some babies in my group, man. They ask really dumb questions sometimes, and I'm like, I'm sorry about COVID, but sometimes your player's not going to be there. There's nothing I can do about it. You just got to roll with it. So, and just getting money from people is just a pain. So it's not a fun job, but I guess someone has to do it.
It's your cross to bear. That's okay.
That's right.
How does your league that I'm a part of come up with the idea of having 2 kickers, no flex, and is it just like, hey, we want the waiver wire to be just a little bit better than what it usually is?
Okay, so this league started many years ago, and it was started by Rob Hall, and this was the game plan that he had. And I didn't know anything about fantasy football when I first started with this, but our league is interesting because we give our quarterback 6 points per touchdown, so quarterbacks become very, very sought after. And then, we are very strict on, we don't have any kind of flex, so if you drop a kicker, you have to pick up a kicker. If you drop a running back, you have to pick up a running back. You have to have 4 running backs on your roster at all times. And a lot of people get confused about that who are new coming into the league. But, yeah, the waiver wire, it gets pretty thin sometimes. But I like it because it makes people think a little bit more, where you can just stash people on your rosters and not really think about it. It really makes you think, like, especially this year with COVID, it's been really difficult. So you got to be thinking.
Yeah, this will be a tough Super Bowl to win. It'll be a tough Kent McKay trophy to win as well.
How are you doing in the league, by the way, Ben?
I'm kind of average. I was terrible at the start, but I'm working my way up. And in the other league that I'm in, I was at the top, and now I'm on a landslide. So, I mean, I'm about average in both leagues here. But, yeah,
Gotcha.
Things are looking better. I'm trying to make a wild card surge. So we'll see how that goes on.
McCaffrey's back in my lineup, so watch out.
Oh, my breaking news on that. So one other part about I was curious, maybe your KMOT work could transition to what you do now with crop insurance. A lot of agriculture reporting, of course, involved here. People would care about that kind of thing. Did you have any experience dealing with those kind of issues, reporting on those issues at KMOT? Did that kind of give you background as you moved into selling crop insurance? And kind of what's your perspective in that job?
So when I was at KMOT, I was the agriculture reporter. Obviously, because of my background growing up on a farm, that was kind of a natural fit. So I had a series called On the Farm, and I would do a weekly egg report during the growing season. And what was funny about that is I would sometimes go out. As I said before, I farmed for about 8-9 years. I farmed for a quarter land that my dad had that I just rented from him. But I thought, well, what if I just do a story on the crop that I'm growing for the year and kind of just give people an inside look at what it takes to grow a crop on a family farm? Well, I'd end up like interviewing my dad sometimes, and my dad was kind of a jokester and would crack a couple jokes about climate change and Al Gore and stuff. And people would get a huge kick out of it, and my dad would get a big kick out of it because, like, when he would go to Menards and Minot, he'd get recognized, and he just loved that. So, yeah, that was kind of a natural fit. And then when I was kind of looking to get out of KMOT, I wasn't really looking to get out, but I got a call one day from the former CEO, Claude Sem of Farm Credit Services, and he goes, this was after the flood, of course, and he said, hey, what do you think about crop insurance? I got an opening. I'm like, wow, as a farmer, I had crop insurance. I knew it was a very confusing thing. I didn't know a lot about it. But I said, well, I will give it a shot. And he said, I can train you to do whatever you want to do with crop insurance. But he goes, I can't train you to talk to people. Because when, communication's important when you answer the phone and try to talk to farmers and explain a complicated topic. So that was my communication career, I guess, got me into what would be my next career in crop insurance. And honestly, just yesterday, I used my editing video skills and my marketing and television skills to do something for Farm Credit. So it really has, my 12 years at KMOT has really helped me propel me into my job right now.
Did your dad ever take any kind of veiled shots at you that you let into your reports? Yes,
all the time. Yeah. He would take shots at me about how crappy my crop was, and well, you should be out here working more. And I would just call myself like a weekend farmer. He was kind of the brains behind it, but I guess I was the money behind it. So
I guess you can't accuse the Dryers of being nepotists, right?
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not. So you make a good impression over KMOT's airwaves. I guess when you have to come into contact with people, a lot of it is the presentation of yourself. Hair's got to be on point, anchor hair. Does Margaret cut your hair for you, your wife?
Well, that's a funny story too, because my wife, she just retired from being a hairstylist. She was a hairstylist for 15 years, and when I've always been I'm just going to say I've always been obsessed with my hair for some reason, and my mom would make fun of me and make sure your hair's done, and I'd have to have hairspray and mousse or whatever. But I did not. When Margaret started cutting hair, I didn't even go to her. because I was so used to going to you get kind of attached to the person that's cutting your hair. And she was so mad at me because we weren't married at the time, but she was like, "Why aren't you coming to cut my hair?" I'm like, "Well, I've been with this girl for a long time. She does it. I don't trust you."
Oh, it's a girl too. I was thinking you were at a barber.
No barbers. This was a hairstylist, Ben. Hairstylist.
Oh, okay.
But eventually, after I decided I was probably going to marry this person, I should probably go to her and trust her enough to cut my hair.
Yeah, Nick Dreyer is barbers are too gruff for Nick Dreyer. He can't take the edges. He can't take the debate. He just can't.
Gotta watch that.
Yeah. So you just said Margaret hung up the clippers here recently. What's she been able to enjoy doing now that she's finished up at the salon?
Well, it's just been recently, kind of in the last few weeks here. So she's kind of just cleaning up her house when she doesn't have time because we have 4 young kids. So that takes a lot of our time. And so she's kind of been enjoying herself. I said, you need to take some time just for yourself and just relax. So she has been doing that a little bit, but she's been wrapping up a lot of things with her old business, with taxes and stuff like that. And then she's actually getting ready for her new business. So that'll be exciting. She's opened up a coffee kiosk. So. Oh,
that'll be fantastic. I'll have to. You got to watch out. You guys will be going back and forth with the Daily Buzz. You can set up across the street or whatever.
Yes.
And Pat's in Philadelphia.
We won't be across the street, but we'll be in a very visible area. More news on that to come.
All right, that's exciting. Hey, so maybe she's gotten in the time between steps here. I bet she's had at least a little bit of time to enjoy hitting up Nick's Tavern. What made you want to open that venture?
We've been hitting up Nick's Tavern a lot since COVID hit, I can tell you that.
Oh, I'd bet.
Yeah, so Nick's Tavern is a little side project. I guess me and my buddy Brent Sumpy, when we were in college, we'd always kind of dream, we're going to have a home bar someday. But home bars became pretty popular several years ago, and I always dreamed, like, when I built a house, I would kind of have my own home bar and have stuff in there that I want. And I finally saved up enough money and I could do it. We kind of built the house but didn't do the bar. That was the last thing that got cut, of course. But so I had some time to kind of design it the way I wanted to. And I think back in 2016 we built it and put up a Facebook page. And I try to throw some funny things on there once in a while, but I don't have a lot of time for that. But yeah, it's been fun. I kind of envisioned it as the neighborhood bar, kind of like Cheers. You come over after a hard day's work, Nick's Tavern's open, and kind of for the neighborhood, hopefully a place where neighbors can gather and friends can gather and have a good time.
How creative do you like to get with your cocktails? Do you make up any specialties, or are you just like the tried and true kind of place?
No, we do some specialties. What I try to do is really have quality booze to put in the drinks. I don't get too complicated with things, but I'd rather have better quality than a bunch of quantity of a bunch of different mixtures, I guess. So I'm really into trying different scotches and bourbons and different whiskeys. I really enjoy that. My wife is more into martinis, wine, stuff like that. And I'm not much into martinis, I guess, but I like wine. I have really gotten into craft beer a lot. But I'm mostly especially right now, I'm into bourbons because they're becoming they're flying off the shelves. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, I would venture to guess I have one of the better bourbon and scotch selections around the Minot area, I think, for bars.
Way to go. So you have the good stuff, but are you snobby about it?
Yes, very snobby.
Oh, okay. Dang, that's all right. We got to pick our spots. That's okay.
No, we have classy pours at Nick's Tavern. Very classy pours, at least 3 fingers wide. So no, we don't skimp on it. I always think, like, why hoard this stuff? Why not enjoy it with a friend that actually really enjoys it? Enjoys drinking a good bourbon, good scotch. I don't try to hoard it too much.
Good for you. I'll try to class up the place every now and again. So.
Yeah. There's a guy over there one time, a couple years ago, that I think he enjoyed Nick's Tavern a lot.
Yeah, it was good. So something obviously in today's day and age, as we're navigating this pandemic, travel has sometimes been tough to come by. How about your recent trip? You were able to go to Dallas, not only see the Jerry World, but you were there for a Cowboys game. How was that trip? Was that like a bucket list thing, or do you get to Dallas a lot for the Cowboys?
No, I don't get to Dallas a lot, and the way that happened was interesting. My wife, as I said, is opening this coffee business, and she found what's called Texas Coffee School. It was a 3-day training on specialty coffee and how to create this business. So she had decided to go to there, and I'm like, well, I'll tag along, and if I just hang out by the pool and read a book, I'll be happy because it's nice weather in Dallas right now. Well, then I started looking, and it just happened to fall on a Sunday where they were playing the Giants at home. And I thought, okay, with COVID, there's no way I'm going to get tickets. So I started looking like probably 3 weeks before the game, and on the site, on the AT&T Stadium site, you could buy like 4 tickets at a time because they were trying to put families in pods, so everybody wasn't all bunched up together because they couldn't obviously fill the stadium to capacity. They were one of the few teams actually having fans, which was cool, but I think there was probably 23,000 fans there when I was there. But I ended up getting on another, I think it was Ticketmaster site, and I found 2 tickets for resale. I paid way too much for them, but I thought, when in Rome, I better go. I was at the old stadium before they tore it down, and that was fun. Had a blast there. This stadium is it's the best stadium I've ever been at by far.
Better than the Viking Stadium?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Cowboys fan.
Oh, yeah.
And the Viking Stadium is nice, don't get me wrong, but Jerry World, I think, is on a different level.
Now, unfortunately for you personally, because you're a Dallas fan, obviously, you were there in the stadium for quite a moment. Dak Prescott's horrible injury happened. What was, like, the feeling in the stadium when that happened? And, like, probably in your seats, I mean, like, you didn't see many replays of it, and just kind of like, what was the talk in the stadium as people were maybe checking their phones and seeing how bad it was for Dak?
Well, when it happened, I remember my thought was, why are they running a quarterback draw play? And I remember him going off to the left, and he had a nice run, and he went down awkward. We were pretty far away, but I remember him kind of going down awkwardly, and I thought, that didn't look good. And then he stayed on the ground. And then, of course, in the stadium, when your quarterback's on the ground not getting up, everybody gets real anxious real quickly. And then after about a minute, he doesn't get up, then you know something's really bad, and then they bring out the stretcher. It was just a really horrible feeling because Dak, for Dallas fans, Dak is just a great leader. He's a nice guy. I think he's been through a lot in his life. And you've seen this guy come up from nowhere, a 4th-round pick, and Romo goes down, and this kid comes in, and everybody's like, oh, who's this? Season's lost. And then he goes on an unbelievable run in 2016, which I got to see him play the Vikings, who they beat on a Thursday night, by the way, 2016. But it was just tough because he was really having a historic season. The offense was just really clicking. I mean, the passing game was unbelievable. And
like 400 yards a game.
Yeah, we all thought this was possible for Dak, and just to see him go down like that on a draw play run featuring your quarterback, your franchise quarterback who's on the franchise tag, it's like, what do you can always second guess those kind of plays, but it was awful.
So, do you feel like going forward you still are going to pay him or what?
Well, Jerry said he is. Jerry's not shy about opening up the pocketbook. Yeah, I think from what I've read, I think the injury he can recover from that. I'm also a Celtics fan, so I go back to when Gordon Hayward had his horrible injury on opening night a couple years ago, and I think Gordon's was maybe a little bit worse. Mm-hmm. So I think Dak probably comes back. I don't know if he's going to be back next year. I think it's going to take him another year after he's healed just to trust his leg enough. And I think so we're looking at a couple of years, year and a half before I think he's playing at a high level.
Mm-hmm. And one guy who has been paid already is Carson Wentz. Do you still think that you should pick Dak over Wentz at this point? Because, boy, I love Wentz and he was awesome in 2017, but these turnovers are looking horrible.
Well, Wentz, I like Wentz. Obviously, I'm a North Dakota kid, and he's a North Dakota kid. as you remember back, Dallas was really, really into Wentz. They wanted Wentz bad. Garrett, their coach Garrett at the time, really liked Wentz, and I think he coached their college, whatever you call that game, the All-Star game, and they were looking at Wentz heavy. And then the stupid Eagles, of course, move up and grab Wentz. So I was mad at that point. Of course, that draft we got Zeke, and then in the 4th round we get Dak. Wentz, you Eagles fans are just a different breed. I think you're very hard on Wentz. Wentz has no one to throw to, never has. His offensive line sucks, and he is running for his life out there, yet he's still winning games. I hope Wentz leaves the Eagles because I don't think Philly fans appreciate who he is, and I think the Vikings have an opening.
Oh, yeah, real soon. I don't know. He was really good in 2017, and now, I mean, you look no further than the last game that he was out. Those turnovers in the Cowboy game, I mean, you saw it. Those were pretty rough. I know it was a windy night. There were still a couple picks, and he was fumbling the ball. It's a fault because I know his heart's in the right place trying to make these great plays, but then he turns the ball over, and then he got hurt the one time diving for the goal line when, shoot, you had another play you could probably not get injured on. But, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
I appreciate, the heart that he has, but, yeah, you just got to manage it maybe a little bit better. And to the one point, you've seen the Cowboys now with Dalton and Ben DiNucci, a Carson Wentz rival from the big-time FCS days.
Yeah, DiNucci.
Yes, absolutely. So the thing, the narrative probably wasn't there when DiNucci was going to come out and play because the expectations were probably low for him. But Dalton, who is a seasoned NFL quarterback by this point, obviously, all these skill guys that Dallas has on offense, you think, people expected Dalton to be able to just manage the game and get it to these awesome players, and then he had that stinker against the Cardinals. But shouldn't the onus fall a little bit more on these guys that are so talented? I mean, throw these quarterbacks that are in a tough situation with less reps with you guys, throw them a little better bone than you're giving them. What's your perspective on that? I mean, I hated CD going to the Cowboys. I hate all the good skill players that you guys are fortunate enough to have, but geez, I mean, they got to help out a little bit, don't they?
Yeah, just thinking, imagine Dallas receiving core with Wentz. I mean, that's what just popped in my head right now. But I'm going to give Dalton a bit of a pass because the Cowboys' offensive line is absolutely disgusting. I mean, it's been riddled with injuries. I think we're on their backup to the backup at center. We started 3 guys that had never started before. Our all-pro guard is gone. The left tackle's gone. The right tackle's gone for the season. I mean, it's been horrendous. So Dalton literally had no time to throw, and I really don't want to judge someone. You can have all the best skill players you want, but if you don't have an offensive line and give them time to throw, I think there's some quarterbacks that could maybe get through that. Tom Brady comes to mind. He can get the ball out quick. There's some quarterbacks that can do that, but Dalton, I don't think, can do that. So I'm going to give him a pass. Then, of course, he got knocked out of the game with the dirty hit with the Redskin guys. Well, I'm not supposed to say Redskin. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So some good momentum, though, for the Cowboys in the first half of the Eagle game in a 9-7 lead. But after that, the Eagles were able to pull ahead. And in other games, boy, the Cowboys' defense has had a rough time. How do you kind of fix that area?
If anything's worse than our offensive line right now, it's the defense. Actually, the last game that was a little bit better. You can see the effects of the Jones family's brains when you look at our defense because they have given. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine that's a Cowboys fan too, and we were going over the defense. I'm like, you see this team, and they gave Zeke $90 million, and then let Byron Jones, probably one of the best corners in the league, go. That changes your whole defense, and then plus the decisions on our defensive coordinators. We brought in defensive coordinators that have a system, and then you draft players that are good for that system, and then the D coordinator leaves, and then you're left with these players that don't fit the new D coordinators. It's just a mess, and they're trying. Mike Nolan, who's a defensive coordinator now, had no time because of COVID to get his defense in place. Plus, he's working with less talent. Our safeties are awful. Our secondary's not. The corners aren't great. The linebackers are underperforming big time. Things are just not good in Dallas right now, and it comes down to bad decision making in the salary cap and getting rid of coaches. So I have no expectations this year, which is odd for me as a Cowboys fan, but it is the way it is.
Let's try to say something backhandedly nice about Mike McCarthy. What's your favorite thing about this genius?
Boy, oh boy. I liked the fact that when Dalton went down, he got really ticked off at his players for not fighting the other team and fighting back for their quarterback. They kind of just lackadaisically ran up there and helped Dalton up where they should have been punching that guy in the mouth for knocking out their quarterback. And I really liked the way he responded to that. That's about all I could say.
There was more of an uproar between Wims and Gardner-Johnson in the Bears-Saints game than there was when Dalton got hit.
Yeah, right.
Big time. So, and that was only over grabbing mouth guards, not knocking out the quarterback. So, I wish you the best as a Dallas fan as much as I can. Geez, so talking about that dirty hit, the second edition that you guys see with the Washington football team is coming up on Thanksgiving. Who do you like in that game?
I mean, people can't wait for the Washington football team and the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I mean, it's a big game, right? The NFC East is a garbage heap right now. I don't know how Philly doesn't win the division. I think they just could show up and win it. Washington has a decent defensive line. I mean, they pummeled the Cowboys on the defense. I mean, it was horrible. So at least they have some talent on that side of the ball where the Cowboys, other than their receivers who won't get the ball, and Zeke was horribly underperforming after getting $90 million from Jerry. I don't see how they win that game. So we're going for a draft pick.
Okay, and let's just all agree that we can congratulate whoever the 5 seed is in the NFC on an easy game in the opening round.
Yes, let's do that.
All right, so one more thing that I actually thought of touching on during the interview when you were talking about just like Margaret's business steps, something else that you guys absolutely love doing together is going to concerts all over the place, man. Tell me like the best ones that you've been to.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So when me and my wife met, we both had a love for music, and we just have really enjoyed going to concerts. So we've seen a lot of people. I'm trying to think of like who sticks out. Seeing Chris Stapleton, he was great. My wife's a huge country fan, so I'm of course have to be a country music fan now. But we've seen Bon Jovi, who played for like 3.5 hours. I mean, they were awesome. Seeing Aerosmith in Las Vegas was fun. When my wife, like almost every day, she's like, when are we going to get to a concert again? Because of COVID, of course, no one can get together. But I told her, I'm like, if Jason Aldean is the last concert I ever see, I'm going to be pissed.
Oh, man.
But, the last concert was Jason Aldean. She's a big Aldean fan. I'm more on the rock side, so Black Stone Cherry, they were awesome. One of my favorite bands is Alter Bridge. I've seen them in a small bar, and that was just awesome. And we've seen a lot of groups. So,
what was the best fair concert you've been to?
Oh man, good question. The State Fair is such a great atmosphere because all your friends are around and you can just mingle and have a couple cold beers or whatever. But seeing Aerosmith at the State Fair was a ton of fun. I remember Def Leppard was there, and that was a blast.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see them.
Yeah, I've seen them a couple times. And the country music acts they bring, obviously North Dakota is big with country music, so they bring in like top acts, and Blake Shelton was a lot of fun. I think he had a few beers that night, so he was feeling pretty good. So yeah, I've seen. I mean, it's just a great atmosphere, so everybody's having it, in a good mood, and it's of course end of July, so the weather's beautiful and the sun doesn't go down for a long time, so it's a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely, man. One more thing to get you out on here, Nick. I'm getting ready to have Jeff Risk on the show, longtime ref, the commish, another commish of the Mondat Conference between you and him, a couple commissions. And then also he was AD at Nedrose for a little while. That's where your kids are at. Tell
Yeah.
me how you're able. Your kids are just starting to play sports. Tell me a little bit about those projections and how good the Cardinals are going to be when all the Dreyer kids are coming up in the future.
Well, I don't want to give my kids too much credit. I get their heads too big, but I started playing basketball when I was in third grade. I started on my high school team for 3 years. I loved basketball. I loved playing baseball. Unfortunately, in a small town, I could only play up to a certain point because we didn't have enough players to have like a high school team. I would have to go to a different town. Same with football. We were at that time, Willow City was playing with roulette, and football comes at harvest time. So as a farm kid, you're kind of busy. So football really wasn't in the cards for me, and I'd have to travel all the way to roulette, which was pretty far away at that point.
Was Willow City by itself for basketball, or did you go somewhere else for that?
No, we were by ourselves when I was there.
Mascot?
The Red Wings.
Oh, nice, sweet throwback.
Yep.
Okay, so go on.
Yep. Yeah. So obviously I have a passion for sports and playing sports through my younger years. So they obviously see me. I watch a lot of NBA basketball. I watch a lot of football, and they see me how excited I get. So they obviously are interested in it. My oldest son Larson, he really has a mind for it. He knows all the numbers of the players, and he really has a passion for it. I'm not sure how athletic he's going to be. I hope he works on that. But we play football in the basement and pretend like he's scoring the touchdown from Nedrose, and it's just a lot of fun. My middle one, Lincoln, he's way athletic. I think he's going to be really athletic, but his mind's, he kind of gets scared a little bit. He's a little bit nervous, a little bit timid, so we got to work through that. I'm not going to push him. I try not to push him. We've done some basketball camps, and they've done well in that. And then my youngest, Lewis, and he's just kind of starting to learn how to catch the ball, and he's liking football and basketball too. So my oldest, Lily, who I think would probably be the best athlete because she's big and strong and athletic, she's like her mom, where she doesn't like to be in front of people, so that makes her too nervous. So I don't think she's going to play sports in Nedrose, but I have some hope for my boys, and it's going to be a lot of fun just watching them grow up, and hopefully they can go to their games.
Yeah. I'll be seeing them then too, right?
I hope so.
There we go, man. Hey, Nick, this has been awesome, dude. Really appreciate the time catching up at all your different stops, man. And we'll see you at the tavern sometime. Thanks.
That sounds good, and thank you, Ben, for sticking around Minot, and thanks for all you do for the community.
Hey, appreciate it, man. That's KMOT legend Nick Dreyer.